about 11:30 Eastern time last night when this news came down. The NBA has suspended Draymond Green for Game 3 of the series between the Warriors and Kings for stepping on the chest of Domantas Sabonis in Sacramento's Game 2 win. The NBA saying in a statement, quote, the suspension was based in part on Green's history of unsportsmanlike acts. As you would imagine, there was an enormous amount of reaction out there, including from Dame Lillard, who, as you see there, reacted with a palm face emoji and later said a suspension is crazy. I will point out as well, because it was announced after that announcement was made, that Sabonis suffered a bruised sternum and is officially questionable for Game 3. So I wanted to keep everyone in on this because D. Wood came into our meeting and he had a lot to say. You know, Nika's out. I ran into Kmart in the elevator this morning. She's got a lot to say. Alan, I'll start with you. You're in a cab on your way home from the Knick game last night, which you cover for MSG. This news comes across. What was your first reaction to Draymond being suspended? Surprise. Did not expect it. The fact that they're going with his history and what he has done throughout his career. He's had 164 technical fouls. I mean, think about his stat line. We go with how many suspensions, how many fouls, and all that stuff. How many technicals? Because that's really been about who he's been about. And the league is using all of that as a reason to make an example of him, putting him in timeout, essentially, because the one way to get to a player is to impact his team. And they're down 2-0 in a series. They need him in Game 3. He won't be available to his team. Fines and everything else don't normally affect players as much as hurting your team. And I believe that's why they made this decision. Monica, it's a pretty simple question. The answer isn't so simple. Was this the right decision by the NBA?
Right? I will say the decision by the NBA is justified in my mind, and I got to give credit to our friends over at TNT. I think Chuck made a good point last night that perhaps because the commissioner is in the building and you add the antics after this misstep, we'll call it, is only a layer that the league felt like they couldn't be outdone, I guess, in terms of dealing with Draymond. So I get it. I said yesterday I thought that the penalties in the game were sufficient, but if they said very clearly in the statement, history plays a factor in this one. Yeah, I'll repeat it again. The suspension was based in part on Green's history of unsportsmanlike acts. And I think Monica just made the good point. And yes, Charles Barkley said it. When this all happened on Saturday night, that was Game 1. I'm sorry. When this all happened 2 nights ago, Adam Silver, the commissioner, was in the building to see it. D. Wood, you came into our meeting fired up this morning.
I came in like a hurricane, okay? Let me tell you, that Monica actually hit it right on there. Exactly what I told you this morning, Greeny. Like, yes, he has history. We all know that. But I said the reason he got suspended was because after the technical, Draymond out here doing all of this, all of that in the crowd, the commissioner up in the stands, and he's like, wait a minute, you're making a mockery of the situation right here. And Draymond Green is too damn old to be acting like that. That part. Like, you are, I can understand you 22, but you 32, 33 years old, acting a fool in front of the commissioner like that. So the commissioner like, okay. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and hand the suspension down and go sit you down in timeout for a minute.
Right. Okay, but in fairness, you're talking to a former goon. I was a goon in the 8th grade for my girls' basketball team.
What? I like it.
What is happening?
So I very much love Draymond's energy, and I don't think it's fair that he's being penalized. On one level, I feel like it's not being fair that he's penalized for the history. How many technicals did you say, Alan?
Well, it's 11 seasons. It's a lot.
But to be fair, he also has to be mindful of who he is and in that situation and the stakes of that situation. So part of me is like, I don't know if it really warrants a suspension, but I'm not surprised, honestly. I'm really not because of the history. I'm upset about it for the Warriors.
If I could just out quickly, I had an NHL GM that I covered for a long time with a great line about a player who was a marginal kind of player, right? He said, what makes him a blank is what makes him good. He needs to be like that, and we have to live with it. Because that's what he gets under the skin of the opponents. He just has that edge, and we have to learn to live with it. But there are times you got to pull him back, and this is one of those times.
So Dominique Foxworth, who is known to be something of a contrarian
and an instigator,
I want to present my opinion on this to you because I'm really curious to hear your thoughts on what I'm about to say. When we first launched the show, I wanted to do a feature called "Say Something and Duck" because I thought it would be unpopular. I think that Draymond Green doing all this stuff is great. I think it is great for the league. I think it is great for the moment. I think it brings great interest. I think it brings great energy. I don't think it hurts anybody. I don't think that there is – I understand that the league for some reason has decided it doesn't like it, but I actually disagree. I'm not – what the league did was not wrong. Yeah. I can't sit here and say they're wrong. But I will say that it is my opinion that whether you think he's too old to be doing stuff like that or not, that's his problem. It certainly isn't mine. I like it. I'm into it. I was enjoying it. It adds an element, a spice, a little something to the entire thing. And in my opinion, it should not be removed from the sport because then everything becomes a little bit too homogeneous. What do you think of that, Dominique Foxworth?
No need to duck, Greeny. I agree with you that it does make it more entertaining. I would say you can't say no one was hurt. I think Domantas Sabonis would disagree with that because he had a giant man put his giant foot on his chest. So somebody was hurt. But where I disagree with what it seems like everybody on the panel is, I agree that you can be critical of Draymond Green. I don't agree that you can suspend him. Like, this feels unprecedented and basing it on something vague like his previous activity. Like, normally, I understand the NBA, you get 15 technicals, then you get suspension. You come off the bench during an altercation, you get a suspension. You throw a punch, then you're going to get suspended. At no point that I remember since I've been watching NBA have they just like kind of felt like, hey, well, this guy does a lot of stuff, so we're gonna suspend him. It's not as if it wasn't instigated. It seemed like it was in the course of the action. I agree Draymond should be old enough or mature enough to not be able to do that, and you should throw him out of the game, which they did, which negatively impacted his team. But then to follow it by suspending him, I think you've gone too far and you're setting a precedent that the league can kind of do whatever they want to players whenever they want, which is never going to be something I'm going to be comfortable with. While everybody's cool with it right now, while it's Draymond, because we all know it's Draymond, when it comes up to when there's another player who does something marginal and they just suspend him for a series or for a game or for whatever because they say we're basing it on these other things that are arbitrary and not hard and fast, like throwing a punch or coming off the bench, it's going to be a problem.
Monica, I could not help but notice I was making my point that you were rolling your eyes in my general direction. What was your perspective on what I said? I like it.
Couple things. I think for you, all my events are now running together in my head, but we literally just came off of a conversation about the league setting an example and wanting players to set an example. And I know I've heard plenty of people say, oh, you don't want kids swinging. Who punched somebody the 2 weeks ago? I can't remember. It was the push, the Timberwolves thing. Everybody was like,
Rudy Gobert.
Yeah, Rudy Gobert. You got to suspend him because you're setting an example. I personally think that's a ridiculous argument.
Teammates, though.
Exactly. They were teammates, and young people watching sports should have parents. But what I will say is I think the use of the word arbitrary, Foxy, is not quite accurate in this situation. Draymond has a very clear documented history. He has been suspended for this type of thing, non-basketball contact, before. So I struggle with that word. And then for you, Greeny, like, yeah, the entertainment value is great. However, do you want us to go back a decade or so to when we were getting plenty of entertainment values and lots of guys were on the floor and it was a far more physical game? So I don't know that you can have it both ways.
Yes, that was the best NBA.
Yes. If that's what y'all want,
that was the best NBA, Monica.
But the league is
passion,
not going in
energy,
that direction.
That's what people want. They get inspired by it. You heard what Greeny said. I was 100% with you when you said that because that's what it's about. Are you entertained? We want to see these guys fight and battle like warriors, especially this time of the year, no pun intended.
But you are full of crap.
You love this stuff.
You're full of crap. We don't want to see guys stepping on one another. Come on, you sound ridiculous.
Stepping on him.
This is the example that we're using. I think there is a degree where we have room for maybe more physicality compared to today's league. It is far more a game that benefits the players on offense. However, y'all tripping if y'all honestly want to go back to 15 years ago.
I do. I love that game.
I'm not saying I'm entertained by him stepping on the chest. I'm entertained by him going at it with the crowd.
That's what you were talking about.
Yeah, that's what
the step definitely deserved it.
And by the way, the stepping on the chest, which he shouldn't have done, Sabonis started it. At the end of the day, Sabonis, if he doesn't fall down and grab his leg, then Draymond Green doesn't do anything.
But listen, the theatrics, it looks great on television. Yeah. I agree with you right there. But when you got the big ball sitting in the arena, he gets attacked, then you doing all hyping up the crowd and making a mockery of it. I'm telling you, the commissioner's like, no, you're not going to make a mockery out of me, bro. You're not going to do it.
let's
That
go
was
back
rough.
15 years ago, crew. How do you think David Stern would have responded to this?
Oh, I remember
wow.
because you
Tell
talked
me.
about it. JoJo English, Derek Harper.
Yeah.
Somebody tell me.
David Stern was there at that game. That's why they started suspending players for just stepping off of the bench because he was there. It happened right in front of him.
I do believe that would make my point.
But
we
that was a
won it,
fight that
Monica.
went
We
into
won
the
it.
stands.
Literally.
I mean, that was very different.
At his
Those two
feet.
guys rolled into the stands.
JoJo English was not a player of consequence, and so now we're talking about someone.
That was the
who is.
point. They specifically put him on
Right.
the court
Yeah,
just
right.
to get
Exactly.
Derek Harper
Exactly.
to do something, and he fell for it. Exactly as Draymond did. He fell for it. Domantas Sabonis grabbed his leg. Now Draymond is suspended for Game 3, and maybe it's the end of the dynasty. Okay, we have a lot more. Outside of that, not much going on.
That's how we get started.
Let's leave it there for the moment. I think that we've established one thing. It's that I'm right, and then we'll go on from there. We got other